Good morning. My name is Tushti, and this is Surendra, my husband. And it's our pleasure to be here with you today. We also have the pleasure of leading the Sadhaka training group. And in this training, right now we're studying the lives of the early disciples of Yogananda. And if you're new today, we welcome you. And Yogananda's picture is just above the altar beneath the picture of Christ. And he came to America in 1920s to share the teachings of Christ, of self-realization, and to remind us that all that we're looking for abides within us. Well, Dr. Lewis first met Master on Christmas Eve, and he admitted that he was a little skeptical of this young man from India with long black hair and wearing golden robes. You know, he sort of stood out in the crowd in the 1920s, and he posed a question. He said he had a question about the biblical scripture. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light. He said, I've asked many, and no one has given me a satisfactory answer. Can you? The master said, I think so. Well, he asked Dr. Lewis to sit down in front of him. And he looked him in the eyes, and he said, Doctor, will you always love me as I love you? And the doctor answered, yes, I will. And Master rubs his hands together, and he says, that's fine. I take charge of your life. And then, just leaning forward, he placed his forehead against the doctor's, and this was so soothing, so calming to the doctor's mind. And he asked him to uplift his gaze. And there, the spiritual eye, this great light appeared, and it moved all through his body, illuminating every cell, that inner kingdom. And we say, how did that happen? Well, he had stilled the restless waves of the doctor's mind and allowed the intuition of his own soul to open the doorway to that inner kingdom. And that's always abides within us. The divine consciousness just holds a very big space for us. You know, we think we can approach these doors, and it takes lifetimes after lifetimes. So then also I want to mention that in the Bible, Jesus said, didn't he, uplift your gaze and look on the fields, for they are white already with harvest. And what he was pointing out to us was the blessings, the bounty of God's blessings, and the awareness of that light within us. It abides within our hearts. And God holds this great space for us to wander around lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You know, it kind of goes on, and here we are. And we're just looking. You know, we're looking for lasting joy and inner peace. It's a longing within our hearts. And we just keep looking until finally we go, this ride is going nowhere. So we find a teacher. We find someone to show us the way. And Jesus said, uplift your gaze, uplift your eyes. And to the point of the spiritual eye, it's called the seat of intuition, the Christ consciousness, you know, the seat of the soul. And in our meditations, aren't we taught to sit quietly, uplift our energy, and uplift our gaze to find what we are seeking? And there we call to the Divine Mother. We call to Master. And what does he say? He says, open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. Now, doorways, you know, we don't get there also by going to the door of our mind. You know, it's kind of a limited space. We don't go there through finding that doorway through the desires of the ego. We find it through the door of our hearts. And when our hearts open, then the divine light can flow in. Now, doorways are interesting because if they're not open, we can't walk through them, nor can anything come to us. Surendra and I had a funny experience when we were traveling. I can't remember where we were, but we walked up. We were just walking together. We walked up to this doorway, and we stopped, and we waited for it to open. And we waited, because nowadays you walk up to a door, and it opens, right? So we waited. You know, we're patient yogis. And then, you know, we're sort of thinking the same thing. This door must be broken. And so, and then we started laughing. We thought, this door is not broken, and this door is not going to open unless we use our energy to open the doorway. And this holds true in our seeking, when we're seeking God. He wants to know that we really want him. You know, how serious are we? Are we just calling to him when we have favors to ask, when we want something? You know, that's not the right way. He doesn't hear us. He doesn't see that. Oh, he sees us, but he goes, they're not there yet. You know, we have to use, again, our energy to make that happen. But what keeps us from walking through that doorway? You know, well, our misconceptions, our fears, and our doubts, but mostly it's our connection to the physical world. Or maybe we think, you know, well, maybe the saints can walk through the door, but I'm not there yet. But you know what? You can't get away with that one. Master says the only difference between the saints and you and I is they never gave up. They never gave up. And St. Francis of Assisi had this lovely saying, and just hold on to this one. The one you are looking for is the same one who is doing the looking. The one you are looking for is the one who is doing the looking. You know, it's probably really good for us to remember that this life is a passing event, and it's not morbid at all. It's just a reality of the physical world. You know, it's just the way it is. Just the way, you know, a wave is only temporary before it returns to the sea. And Master, doesn't he always use that image for us to just sort of demonstrate the folly of our egos? You know, the little ego, the wave, just thinking it's separate from the vast ocean of spirit. It's not that what's so. We are a part of it. You know, God is pure consciousness, omnipresent. It's all around us. It's not over there. We're not outside of it. It abides within us, that great ocean of spirit. And God doesn't matter. He doesn't care how high we make our waves, our little egos, you know, fluffing up. And he doesn't mind either. He always loves us, no matter how our waves crash or how far we have fallen. He always loves us. When I was a little girl, this just floated through my mind, in Sunday school, the Sunday school teacher, you know, I was just a little girl, and she says, and this wasn't a Catholic church either, it was almost as if she was doing this. She said, God does not love naughty boys or girls. God only loves good little children. Well, it caused me a little concern. I thought, does that mean he doesn't love me if I'm naughty? And then I thought, you know, I had my moments. We all have, right? But always God loves us, always. And he's always there, ready to embrace us when we open the door of our hearts. So, the secret to the spiritual path is God remembrance. We have to think of him. If we're not thinking of God, how are we going to feel his presence? If we're not thinking of God, how are we going to feel his presence? You know, it's always there for us, and he's telling us just to open our hearts. There's a very sweet story. It's a little book by Brother Lawrence. It's called Practicing the Presence of God. And he lived in the 17th century in France, and his birth name was Nicholas Herman. And at the young age of 18, he had this spiritual awakening. He was outside in the cold of winter, and he was just looking at this leafless tree, just leafless. And it just, all of a sudden, he just felt that not before long, this barrenness would have leaves. It would turn green, and it would make blossoms, and then it would make fruit. And this was just this deep awakening within him of God's love and God's omnipresence. It's all around us. It's always all around us. And he was not well educated, and so when as a young man, he decided to join the military because he knew he'd get 3 meals a day and he knew he would have lodging. But he served during the time of what was called the 30-Year War. And this was a war, interesting enough, between the Catholics and the Protestants. it may still be going on, you know. And so, but after a while, he received an injury, and actually it left him crippled, so he left the military. And at the age of 26, he joined the Carmelite monastery in Paris, and he took the name of Brother Lawrence. And since he was sort of simple-minded, they gave him just tasks of working in the kitchen, and he worked there many, many years. And then he was given the task of sandal mender, because as he grew older, because of this injury, it became very difficult for him to stand. But no matter what he was doing, no matter where he was serving, he had God held in his heart all the time. And Brother Lawrence was known for this deep inner peace, and many, many people would seek him out and ask for spiritual guidance. And he was so simple. One of his readings or his letters said, think of God throughout the day, through every single activity, even relaxing. He said he's always near. Don't leave God alone. Wouldn't it be rude to not give a friend your attention when he's there to visit you? And God is always visiting us. We just need to uplift our eyes. You know, we're always reminded to be attuned to the masters. Well, to be attuned, we have to be in touch. And it's really simple. God welcomes even our simplest thoughts throughout the day. God bless you.
Our affirmation today, truthfulness. But I'm not as brave as my wife. I've noticed in the past, and for this reason I'm going to break precedent, that it's very easy to know exactly what you want to say when you're preparing to say it, and it's a little different when you're standing up here. And sometimes things get convoluted or left out. So I've got my little blankie of notes here, and just in case. Just about any highlights reel of Hollywood films would have to include the military courtroom scene from A Few Good Men, that climactic scene in which Tom Cruise says to Jack Nicholson, "I want the truth!" And Nicholson fires back, "You can't handle the truth." It's a terrific build-up to that moment, and if you've seen it, you were probably holding your breath. In losing his cool, Nicholson reveals the secret, the lie, that will seal his disgrace and his downfall. Now, admittedly, it's a stretch to go from a Hollywood drama in which people are lying to protect their careers to the kind of truth, the higher kind of truthfulness that Swami Kriyananda had in mind when he wrote this affirmation for us today. But, you know, there's actually a couple of questions in that scene that are very appropriate to this morning and to that affirmation. Question 1, do we always want the truth? And question 2, secondly, can we handle it? Now, I'm sure that everyone here strives to be honest all the time, but are we ready to lay ourselves bare of even the many little ways in which we pad our resume, so to speak, to create a more favorable impression of ourselves? We live in a very competitive world, and it seems to me that a certain amount of deviating from the truth, whether by commission or omission, is just common practice. The white lie is largely accepted as a part of our culture. And even the big lie has its proponents, especially in positions of corporate and political leadership. But in all kinds of relationships, what we see a lot of today is what we euphemistically call diplomacy, which is really, it seems, a lot more seeking not so much harmony and common ground as it is a way of seeking to get an advantage or to serve one's own selfish purpose. Not exactly helpful, because it creates a general lack of trust, which, as we see all around us today, is what is contributing a great deal to the mess the world is in. The toughest part of trying to be truthful all the time is that many times that sets up a head-on collision with our ego's agenda, especially when we're wanting a little bit more than we really need, or perhaps when one of our intentions is not exactly dharmic. And we've all been on this planet long enough to know about karma. We know that when we are short of being entirely truthful, it's going to exact a price. And we know that that price is going to be at least as costly as the value of whatever it is we were hoping to gain. Naturally, this begs the question, why do people do it? Why do we allow ourselves to do things that we know are essentially going to affect our spiritual progress adversely? Clearly, there is nothing quite so compelling, quite so insanely compelling, as an ego on a mission to have its own way. We human beings have developed an extraordinary skill. It's a skill that no other species can claim. It's called the ability to rationalize whatever it is that we want that is not smart, safe, or healthy for us to have. And God, of course, just laughs. If nothing else, we are an endlessly entertaining cast of characters. Maybe that's why He created us in the first place. There is never a dull moment, as you know, when there is a person, a human being, caught in the throes of temptation. To take this a little bit more deeply now, every week in our reading from Rays of the One Light, we begin with 2 sentences that Swamiji has written. And to me, these are the most powerful and profound lines that he has ever written. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. In just 14 words, he's covered the entire purpose and process of the spiritual path. Truth is indivisible. It goes on forever without so much as a nanosecond of falling asleep on the job. Take that oneness, Swami is saying, and make it a part of the deepest part of yourself, of your immortal soul, your divine self. It's all right there in just 14 words. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. When you do that, there is nothing that remains to be done, because there is nothing to know or to remember that matters as much. That truth, that is so vital to hold deep within yourself. And when we do, remember what the promise is. If we make that our aspiration, and we can, it is also in our dedication to that aspiration that, as Jesus said, therein lies the power to become the sons of God. I wonder sometimes if we realize how fortunate we are. I wonder that about myself, because I am not exactly a poster boy for what I'm espousing up here this morning. It's pretty hard to just walk that path all the time. We try, but it has its difficulties. When Yogananda came to the West nearly a century ago, he came with a mission. It was to show us how to become those sons of God. And he brought with him the teachings, the tools, the techniques to help us along the way. Meditation, mantra, chanting, the energization exercises, and most importantly, the practice of Kriya Yoga. He also inspired one particular disciple who for the last 63 years has been an example to all of us, to everyone, of what it is like to abide unceasingly in that truth and to follow that path that Yogananda put before us, that he revealed. Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda, is without a doubt the most intelligent, creative, energetic, wise, and blissful person that any of us has ever known. And it follows unmistakably that if we do as he has done and be as he has been, that same blissful experience awaits us as well. We tend to think of our lives as a struggle to embrace and enter the inner kingdom that was described in our reading today. That thinking misses the point. We are the inner kingdom. All that outer reality that we take for granted, and of course that we must experience in our daily lives, is trivial by comparison. Obviously, we have to be able to function effectively in that outer reality. We have to mind the needs of our bodies. We have to take care of our families and our friends, because they, as we, are a part of that oneness of life. But that outer reality becomes a trap when we take it for more than a source of simply our basic human needs. It is fraught with delusional pursuits that are ultimately misleading. Be thou a yogi, Krishna says to Arjuna in the reading today from the Bhagavad Gita. This is what is being said to us. Be thou a yogi. Be truthful in more than just the worldly sense, but in the realization of our true purpose to become the sons of God. Can we handle that truth? Of course we can. It's just a matter of deciding what matters most, because it is what matters most. God bless.